There is no doubt that Hezbollah is still a powerful military movement. It has a stockpile of precision-guided missiles and other weaponry that's on a scale nowhere seen in the Middle East and as a militant group. However, and if we listen to its chief commander on Thursday, Hassan Nasrallah, for the first time, he acknowledged that these are hard hits and that they need to regroup, they need to reassess.
Now, one of Hezbollah's top military commanders was killed in an Israeli airstrike on Beirut. At least 14 people were killed and dozens injured in the attack on a suburb of the city, which is a Hezbollah stronghold. The Iranian-backed militant group has already been humiliated this week by attacks on their communication systems, with pagers and walkie-talkies being exploded remotely. Hezbollah has threatened to retaliate, but how damaged is the group? Joyce Karam is senior news editor for the news organisation Al Monitor, which reports on the Middle East.
Israel basically is doubling down on what has been one of Hezbollah's toughest weeks in its entire history. So it started on Tuesday with the pager attacks, then the walkie-talkies, then moving on to today, the killing of Ibrahim Aqil in the heart of South Beirut. Those are very detrimental events for the party since its existence in the early 1980s. Why today is uniquely hurtful for Hezbollah is because the strikes have hit its elite forces, the chain command of its elite forces, and the death of Aqil. This guy operates in the shadows. Me growing up in Lebanon, we've never, you don't see them, but they're very effective. He's, as we know from the US, he is implicated in the Marines bombing in 1983. We know he's also implicated in other big terror events in France and then in the civil war in Syria. So we are seeing gradually Israel step up its attacks against Hezbollah. It sees that the party is scrambling, that its command and control are very much weakened, and it sort of knows that Hezbollah is not gonna go for the option of a full-blown war like the one we saw in 2006 or in 1982 with the Israeli invasion. So it's taking advantage of this situation and pushing harder, deeper into Beirut, into hitting the command and control and infrastructure of the party.
And so when you talk about Hezbollah being weakened, to what extent have they been weakened? Do they have an ability to respond in the way they may want to respond to Israel's attacks?
There is no doubt that Hezbollah is still a powerful military movement. It has a stockpile of precision-guided missiles and other weaponry that's on a scale nowhere seen in the Middle East and as a militant group. However, and if we listen to its chief commander on Thursday, Hassan Nasrallah, for the first time, he acknowledged that these are hard hits and that they need to regroup, they need to reassess. This is a language that we haven't heard from Hezbollah, not during or after the 2006 war, definitely not after 2000 and the big victorious celebration of Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon. So this is a different phase of the war. They're weakened, particularly because the hits from Israel have taken out big commanders in the party. Fuad Shukr was the boss of Aqil, who was killed today. They're also hemorrhaging commanders in South Lebanon. It's almost like they've entered this war on October 8th, thinking it will be similar to other Gaza war to last few weeks, but it's now has dragged almost to we're in the 11th month.
That's Joyce Karam, who is senior news editor for the news organisation Al Monitor, which reports on the Middle East.
Smoke billowed from a cell phone shop in Sidon, Lebanon on Wednesday after handheld radios used by Hezbollah detonated across the country's south. Lebanon's health ministry said several people were killed in the latest attack and hundreds were wounded. The death toll from Tuesday's pager explosions rose to 12, including 2 children, with nearly 3,000 injured. At a funeral for 4 of those killed by the exploding pagers, Hezbollah official Heshem Saifuddin promised a response.
This aggression inevitably has its own punishment. It has its own retribution. This punishment will come, God willing. We will not talk much, as tomorrow the talk will be for the master of the resistance.
Hezbollah said on Wednesday it had attacked Israeli artillery positions with rockets in its first strike at its arch foe since the pager blasts. A senior Lebanese security source said the explosives were planted months earlier by Israel's spy agency, Mossad. Israel's military has declined to comment on the blasts.
It's imperative that all parties refrain from any actions that could escalate the conflict.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in Cairo to advance efforts to secure a ceasefire in Gaza, said the detonations in Lebanon threatened to derail diplomatic efforts in the Middle East. Later, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the incidents risked a dramatic escalation in the region.
Because obviously, the logic of making all these devices explode is to do it as a preemptive strike before a major military operation.
A security source said the handheld radios were purchased by Hezbollah 5 months ago, around the same time the group bought the pagers. 2 sources familiar with the group's operations told Reuters its fighters began using pagers, hoping to evade Israeli tracking. A Reuters reporter in the southern suburbs of Beirut said he saw Hezbollah members frantically taking out the batteries of any walkie-talkies on them that had not exploded. Meanwhile, Israel released video on Wednesday that showed Defense Minister Yoav Gallant telling troops that more forces were being sent to the northern border, where Lebanon borders Israel, as the war moved into a new phase.